Yes. And we're recording. So Josiah, super nice that you could make time.
Awesome. Yes. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and so we're gonna talk Neville and yoga.
Yes.
Um, you just said that you started because that was one of my questions. When did you start with Neville? And what led you up to Neville? And are there any other teachers that you had before that you loved
Mm,
metaphysical?
yeah. Great question. I think we all kind of walk this journey, and there's like teachers that we come across as we move through the various stages of the journey.
Yeah.
For me, Abraham Hicks was one of the first voices that I heard that was like, "Hey, there's something else going on here, something different than what I've really heard before." So
Yeah.
I kind of started my journey with some Abraham Hicks. And then I started getting more into the science of mind. I remember it was probably October of 2016. I was listening to an audiobook. It was Genevieve Brandt, Your
Ah, yeah.
Invisible Power.
Yeah.
And I love that book. And it was actually, I can remember the moment. I was actually standing in the kitchen. I was washing dishes and I
Yeah.
had headphones in and I was listening to this audiobook recording of Your Invisible Power.
Yeah.
The book ended and it was on YouTube, and the autoplay went to the next video, and it was Neville Goddard,
Yeah.
his voice speaking.
Yeah.
And I remember as soon as, some of those old recordings, I mean, you shared to me just before we went live here that, you tend to listen to Neville in his own voice as well. I listen to him in his own voice as well. And
Mm.
it's like, anytime there's a recording of him, like when the recording first starts, you kind of hear like, you can tell that it's like, it's an old recording. It
Yeah.
comes from, the 50s or the 60s or whatever it is. You can tell just from the audio quality,
Mm.
very different from what we hear on other videos. So as soon as that kind of high pitched whine and just some of the audio quality starts, like something different is happening here. I'm clearly listening to something that happened a while ago. I remember really being intrigued by his words, and also not just his words, but his conviction.
Mm.
It's like anybody can say something, but when they say it with conviction, it's a different energy that portrays what they're saying. I remember I had to like stop what I was doing, dry off my hands, pick up my phone and look at it. And I was like, Neville Goddard, I've never heard this name before.
Yeah.
And that really started really a love affair with Neville's teachings. And I remember I went for probably 6 months, even before I recorded my own YouTube video of just narrating his lectures. I went for
Mm.
probably 6 months listening to him basically all day, every day, because I was just blown away by what I was
Yeah.
hearing. And I was, at some point I was like, I need to know everything that this man knows and teaches.
Mm.
I just want to saturate myself with it. And so, that's kind of how the journey began. I started listening to a lot of Neville. And it was when I was listening to Neville and having a hard time hearing because of the quality of the recordings, that's really what gave me the idea to read the lecture text in
Mm.
my own voice
Yeah.
for a YouTube channel. Like that's really where that idea came
Yeah.
from. I was like, man, these words are really important and we need to be able to hear them clearly. And, the audio quality being what it is, someone needs to do this. Why not me? So that's kind of what gave birth to the YouTube channel. And then it's been a journey ever since.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I'm not surprised. I'm curious to hear more.
Yeah.
And I also started with Abraham Hicks.
Ah.
And I'm pretty sure more people started with Abraham Hicks. And first you start with the law of attraction, and then you're like, there must be more to it.
Yeah.
This is because that's what it is. Like if when you're ready for next level, I'm curious how it was with you. So at first when I learned this, I thought, no way that I created all of this, whatever I was in at the moment, because I was in kind of a situation that I did not want to be in.
Mm.
So it was, for me, it was the last resort to try
Ah.
to get myself out of it. And when I learned that, I thought, no, but how did I really? So first it was anger and all that. Like, how was it for you when you first learned what he teaches actually?
You know, I love what you said there. I feel like, it's kind of this theme that I see repeated over and over again, both in my life and also in the lives of others. It's kind of one of those things where a lot of times we find Neville when we get to the point where, you know, like you said, you're in that situation where you're like, man, I like something has to change. And it's like, you know, when life is smooth and everything is gravy and everything is great, we don't really ask those questions. Like, you know, am I really the creator of my own reality? And did I really create all of this? And what is the mechanism behind what creates all of this? But when the road is not smooth, when things get rough, when we perceive that we've lost something, a relationship, a job, our health, finances, you know, like some sort of perceived loss, you know, there's this song where the part of the song goes, I lost all my riches. Turns out this is the best thing to ever happen to me, because this is how I found the diamonds in the mind. And I can't really say it better than that. I feel like a lot of times we come to these moments, or we start to ask these really important questions that lead to us waking up out of feeling like we've lost something. And really that loss is a gift, a perceived loss. I mean, we can't really lose anything, but it's a gift because it makes us ask those questions. So to answer your question, I was at a point in my life where I had experienced a pretty substantial physical injury to my physical body. And this actually ties in with our yoga conversation as well. It's interesting. I had broken my arm and torn a bunch of stuff up in my shoulder. And it was right when it first happened, I was not in a great place mentally about it. I really felt like I had messed up. I really felt like, you know, I was my job every day was events, and events is a lot of quite literally heavy lifting. And so I thought that I had really interrupted my ability to earn a living. I thought that I had, you know, just really messed my life up by having this happen to me. But really what it was an invitation to start asking different questions. And it was in the few weeks after that injury occurred that I discovered Neville.
Wow, an invitation to start asking different questions. That's beautifully put. And actually, okay, because for the people that are watching and listening, I found you during my yoga teacher training, and you were talking about yoga and about this injury, but I didn't realize that was also the time that you found Neville. I have somehow, because I feel like you've been there forever. Not that I've been so long into Neville, but somehow I guess it was about maybe a year later, but because you were there before, I have this feeling like you're ancient, you're already so long into Neville. Wow, cool. Okay, so it was an invitation to start to ask different questions. And I already know a little bit about it because I saw the interview, and I don't want to dive into yoga just yet. I want to ask you a few other questions.
Sure.
So let me see. Oh yeah. So you tested the law because you have to, otherwise you're not. So you found out it works. What technique do you love most? Or maybe there are a couple of them. And if you have to choose between believing or letting go, what is the stronger one?
Oh, I love these questions. I love that. Yeah, that's beautiful. Believing or letting go, and what technique is my favorite? Okay, well, so over time, because I've been in this space for a little bit now, I guess going on 3 years. Over time, my favorite technique has been falling asleep in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You know, one of Neville's most famous chapters of one of his most famous books, Feeling of the Secret, is called The Secret of Sleep. And he really just talks about like how as you're drifting off to sleep, like that last state, those last final thoughts are really what you're carrying with you into the subconscious, which is really where you have the opportunity to make this powerful impression upon the subconscious mind, and you're really carrying it in. And he talks about it quite romantically. You know, he's talking about like you're keeping an appointment with your lover, and it's like, this is the gift that you're bringing your lover, and like the lover is your subconscious mind. And I love Neville's eloquence completely. And when he starts talking romantically like that, I'm just like, oh, this is so beautiful. But yeah, so really falling asleep and the feeling of the wish fulfilled, that's something that I have used a lot. I also do the reverie technique, which is basically just like relaxing the body, kind of getting into a comfortable position, and then basically just moving time and space, like shutting off the evidence of the senses to the point where I've disconnected from the here and now, and I'm able to move in consciousness to experience an event. You know, all time is now, so I can really tune into anything in my consciousness at any point when I develop this skill, develop this technique. So it's like really just shutting off and disconnecting from the here and now, and then moving and experiencing a scene. And, you know, some people hear, some people see. I tend to have a pretty strong ability to hear. And over time, I've kind of, you know, I have two people that I live with. I have my partner and we have a roommate, and I see them all the time, and I know their voices. And a lot of times, and you know, we really know each other. So like when things happen in our lives, like that's the people that we share with. So a lot of times I'll go into the silence and I'll move in time and space, and then I'll hear either my partner or my roommate or both talking to me, confirming to me that my imaginal picture is now a reality. And I've had a lot of success with that technique. And then if I may,
of course, yeah, please.
An expansion that's happened over the last couple of days even.
Oh, wow.
Neville was talking about, he had this 1964 lecture that I've been listening to, like on repeat, like probably like 10 times now. So sometimes, you know, his words, there's layers, you just have to go deep and like really get it. But I've been listening to it a lot, and he's talking about this idea of, in the story that he tells, he talks about this author who is writing a story and he doesn't like the way the story feels. So what he does in consciousness is he imagines that he is Robert Louis Stevenson, like this famous author who's written these really famous works. And he basically moves himself into the body of Robert Louis Stevenson and says, what did Robert Louis Stevenson feel like when he had completed a really good story? Like, what was that feeling? And then like really finding that feeling and then bringing that feeling back into his own body.
Wow.
And so listening to this, I was like, man, that's not a technique I'd really tried before in terms of like identifying somebody out there and then like really tuning into like, well, how do they feel? Like I'd always been like, oh, how would I feel when? And that works too. But like, I'd never really looked at it like, oh, you know, what does this person that actually exists out there, what do they feel like when they've written a really good story, or when they've had a significant business success, or, you know, fill in the blank, whatever that is. And then kind of, you know, in Neville's lecture, he says that you can basically call that person alive or having passed on. It doesn't matter. You can actually call that person's consciousness into your consciousness, because you're all imagination. And you can like tune into this state. So for the last couple of days in particular, I've been kind of viewing these different people in my world that I look at, and I see that they are embodiments of a powerful state, a state that I feel aligned with, a state that I feel like is a full expression of what I am, like very similarly aligned. And then really just asking myself, you know, what do they feel like when they're driving home from work at the end of the day? You know, what do they feel like when they publish their book and they know that it's a really good book? You know, what do they feel like when they finish a lecture or finish a speaking engagement and it really feels like they just really landed it? It really, really made a powerful difference in the lives of those who were present. And you know, tuning into that and then bringing that feeling back into my body, and then noticing how, again, it's all about asking different questions, like noticing how I get clearer on what the feeling is and what the state is, and noticing how like different ideas start to pop up in my mind as a result of this movement.
Yeah. Wow, I love this. So you obviously have read more Neville books than I have.
Mm,
I have this reader, this thick, it's huge.
yeah.
Like with all, I forgot the name of the man that put all of these works together, but it doesn't really matter. From which lecture is this actually? Do you?
I can tell you in about 2 seconds because I've got it on.
Good.
I've got it on repeat on my phone here. Yeah, it was one that I don't think I had seen it until maybe a couple of days ago. I still discover new Neville. Okay, so it's called The Law of Liberty.
Ah, I heard of the law of liberty. Maybe I didn't listen to, or maybe he uses the law of liberty more often. I don't know.
It is something that he's said a couple of times.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Oh yeah, but I
yep.
love this. And it reminds me of I've been in Gestalt therapy, I think 10 years ago,
Yeah.
that I left, and I did it for 5 years, and it was amazing. And sometimes you're like, I'm in this really weird dream, like it's group therapy. But
Okay.
anyway, during the Gestalt therapy, our leader, he didn't want to be called a therapist. We just called him by his first name. He was an amazing man, or he is. He's still alive, I
Yeah.
hope. Yeah, he
Yeah.
he was super old back then, or super old. He was in his 70s already then.
Mhm.
So who knows? Anyway, he always said like embody the person that you would like to be like.
Yes.
So it's kind of similar, and as
Yes.
you said, you all of a sudden you will get this inspiration from from a different mind, from a different
Mhm.
state, and
Yep.
yeah, oh, I love that. I love this technique. I'm going to use it too. And
Beautiful.
then believing or letting go.
Oh, so you know, I love this, particularly speaking to another yoga teacher. So for me, believing and letting go is the sthira and sukha, the
Mm,
structure and the flow.
mm,
I was first introduced to, and I know we're going to get into yoga in a little bit, but I was first introduced to this yogi concept of sthira, like the spine, like kind of the structure, and sukha, which is like the flow, or like the intercostals and like the space in between that makes everything work. I was
mm,
first introduced that in yoga, and I know we're going to get into that in a little bit, but I feel like a lot of concepts like kind of helped me really land
mhm,
what Neville is teaching. But I kind of link those two, the believing or surrendering and letting go. I feel like it's a dance between both.
mm,
And I feel like in some moments, I'm really focused on the believing. And in other moments, I'm really focused on the surrender, the letting go.
mm,
And it's interesting because I have a lot of people, reaching out to me on a regular basis, and they'll ask me questions like, hey, like I've done this imaginal picture, and like I keep doing, and like nothing's changing, and it's like, well, then you probably need to let go. Like
mm,
there's probably on some level, because it's like on some level we kind of drop anchors. If we're like this ship on the ocean of consciousness, on some level we kind of drop anchors when we attach expectation to outcomes, and
mm,
it like will kind of keep us anchored in a certain paradigm. And when you're really like trying to push something, and that's what it feels like if you're like doing it, and you really don't feel like you're making any movement. It kind of feels like you're anchored in some way. And a lot of times that's the time to really cut loose those anchors and just surrender and
mm.
allow the reshaping to occur. So it's a balance between the two. I leaning one way or another, not so much. I feel like I kind of dance between the two.
Both. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting because obviously when the question came to me, I had my idea about it, how it goes,
Yeah.
how it goes, because my own experience has been like I agree definitely, and I've also experienced sometimes that I was this is never going to happen, and I just completely left it, and it happened.
Yes. When
Like
you really just
whatever,
yep.
this is not even possible like that. And
Yeah.
then it happens, and I'm like, oh. So I'm constantly
Interesting.
also trying to figure out, okay, but what is it? Because actually it's very simple. Like it's super
Mm,
simple. It's living in the wish fulfilled, assuming
yeah.
the state.
Yes.
And if you're wanting something, it means you don't have it. But somehow we
Precisely.
need all these reminders the whole time. And it's fun. I think it's fun to dive deeper and to find out more. And I also love Neville, his voice, like to listen to him and to read
Yes.
him. And so it's not all for nothing that he
Yes.
like if we just keep with these four things and never read anything anymore. It's not so nice of all his work to just leave it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, what do you do? So I guess we all, so I guess you too, but maybe you're an exception. Do you ever feel like, oh, this is not going anywhere? I'm done with it. Never mind. And what do you do when that happens?
I have moments like that sometimes. I'd say, it's been a journey, it's been a path, and I'd say that there's definitely been moments in over the course of my path where I felt more like that,
Hmm.
and you know, from time to time, I still feel things like that,
Hmm.
and so the question, well, what do I do? Self care.
Hmm.
Self-care. It's on one level, it's like the most obvious thing ever. But it's also something that I find it so important to remind myself and others of. When you get to that point where you really feel like frustrated on some level, or you feel like down, or something along those lines, like that's kind of like this voice that says I'm not enough on some
Hmm.
level.
Yeah.
And whenever I hear that, I'm not enough on some level, it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. There's something that I'm taking way too seriously.
Hmm.
And the best way that I found to really snap out of that state is to really, really walk away from anything I'm trying to create and just honor myself, um, through self-care. And that can, a lot of people, when they think of self-care, they're like, oh, it's, getting a massage, or like, taking myself out to eat on a date, or like, whatever. And those are all aspects of it too. But some of it is just, it's just finding like this tenderness
Hmm.
in the way that, it's like sometimes I'll be feeling a certain way, and then I'll like kind of snap almost out of body in a way, and I'll look at myself almost like you would look at like a small child, like if the small child is like, like this just isn't working for me, and it's like on some level, like you
Yeah.
feel kind of tender towards, and you're like, oh honey, it's okay, like just give it
Yeah.
a break. And like, and it's like I kind of like snap out of body from it, and I look at myself, and it's almost it's almost funny in a way, but like in a sweet way, not in a mean way. It's just kind of
Yeah.
like, oh, I really am taking this way too seriously, and
Yeah.
I really just need to give myself some tenderness. Like,
Mhm.
and it'd be like almost like this nurturing part of me that will say, Josiah, I know that this is really important to you, and it's obvious because of like how serious you are about it. But like, you really just relax. Like, everything's fine. You have everything you need. Like, life is a gift. Life is a blessing. You have
Mm.
a body. You have life. Your heart is beating. You can breathe. Like, the sky is beautiful. Just like really going back to the basics, which for me is part of self-care. And
Mm.
yes, it can get more elaborate than that. And I can go hiking, I can get a massage, I can do this, I can do that. But like, really, for me, when I say self-care, it's like that place from which I receive
Yeah.
myself.
Mm. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, because it's that simple. Like you're taking things way too serious, and you're telling yourself off for not being good enough as you are in this
Yeah.
moment. Yeah, perfect.
Mm.
So this is kind of a little bridge already to yoga. I'm very curious to
Mhm.
hear what you think about this. So Neville, I think it's a lecture that Neville he talks about how Abdullah, they are having a dinner, and Abdullah is eating and drinking everything, and he's like, "How is this even possible?" Neville is thinking, "How is this even possible?" And Abdullah says to me, you could never do this because you have quibbles, meaning you have thoughts about all this food and all these drinks. It would do something to your body because you think it would do something to your body. Um,
Yeah.
and Abdullah can do all this stuff. So for me, that's kind of like, it's almost a contradiction with yoga, because I have a feeling
Mhm.
that eating good, sleeping good, getting up early, doing my practice, all these things, that is very much helps me in my conscious
Yes.
creation process. But then when we listen to what Neville says, I'm like, okay, so I have my idea about it, obviously, but
Yeah.
I'm super curious to hear, what do you think?
I love that, Monique. And I've had a very similar experience with that lecture talking about Abdullah. For me personally, I'm in a similar place to you. I find that when I eat a certain way, I feel a certain way. When I move on a regular basis, I feel like that honors my body, and I feel like it like really, you know, there's that Neville talks about like Abdullah like eating whatever, but yet Neville also talks about how more than anything else, it's the state that is important.
Hmm.
And so when I eat a certain way, like I guess probably a lot of yoga people do, they probably eat like a pretty specific way. When I eat a certain way, when I move a certain way, when I prioritize my practice, for me, that helps me sustain the state.
Hmm.
That feeling, like you said, conscious creation, like that feeling of the wish fulfilled, like it really helps me feel centered and grounded and balanced and in my element.
Hmm.
And look, like you said, almost like a contradiction. Looking at what Neville and Abdullah are teaching, it's like, is that something I'm just creating in my own consciousness then? Is that like literally, am I literally creating that experience? And here's the thing, it's entirely possible that that's the case. I mean, on some level, it absolutely is the case, but you know what I mean? Like it's entirely possible that that is the case, that I'm literally just creating this for myself. But here's the thing, I'm okay with it. I am okay. Like I don't have the desire to eat like Abdullah. I just don't.
Hmm.
And if I did, it would be a different thing. Like if I did, then maybe it would be like, you know what? Maybe I've put in, imposed artificial restrictions upon myself in some way. But I don't. I'm very much at peace and in a state of joy about how I treat my body and about how I eat and everything else. And really my takeaway, just to kind of sum up my approach to it, my takeaway is that I have become non-judgmental about anyone else's choices regarding how they treat their bodies or what they eat or what they drink or their lifestyle, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
There, before really tuning into this lecture, what you're talking about with Abdullah, there was a part of me that was like, well, you'd probably be happier if you weren't eating poison all the time, right?
Hmm.
And now I don't so much have that, because it's like I see it more from this perspective of, hey, we're all creating what we're creating. And I'm not going to say that it's the food that's creating it, because that's giving our power away to food. I'm
Hmm.
not saying that it's the food that I choose to eat that makes me feel this way, because that's giving my power away to the food, and that's not true.
Hmm.
Bottom line is I feel this way and I eat a certain way, and like that just is what it is. And same thing with this person, it's not the food that's making them feel one way or the other, it's that they're feeling that way. And then the food is just maybe an outpicturing of that. I don't really know, but I guess it's maybe a lot more hesitant to really cast judgment about people's decisions that I observe, if that makes sense, because I have this expanded understanding that like, hey, when you have quibbles, it creates problems, and when you don't have quibbles, there are no problems. Okay, I
Yeah,
get it.
it
Yeah.
definitely makes sense, and I love how you say that, and it makes me think about how Seth. So the thing I also love Seth's teachings, and I'm kind of like in between Neville and Seth. Well, and Sadhguru, I added Sadhguru to the mix as well.
Yeah.
It's about beliefs and what do we believe, and we have to find out our beliefs and then working with them. But some beliefs are actually, I don't want to change them. I'm like, this is easy for me to believe how I eat. supports my conscious creation.
Yes.
And I don't want to put a lot of energy in changing those beliefs,
Yeah.
because I would rather use that energy to consciously create something else.
Well said. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. So let's go to yoga then. And
Okay.
I'm not sure
Yeah.
if I said this to you before we started the interview. I'm not sure if I already said it in here. It doesn't matter. I'll repeat it again. So I was doing a yoga teacher training in India.
Yeah.
And I was listening to your interview. The funny thing is, we're not supposed to. Actually, we were not really supposed to have internet or whatever. But I bought an Indian SIM card, and I just
Uh-huh.
love to listen to inspirational things before I go to sleep. That's just. And I thought, well, I'm not Facebooking. I'm not doing anything naughty. I'm just listening to. And it was so interesting how your interview popped up, or not your interview, yeah, and you're interviewing yourself popped up, and you were talking about how
Yeah.
you had done your yoga teacher training, or were you in it in Costa Rica at the time? It doesn't matter. You
I
can
think
tell.
I just completed it. I think it was a live stream. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I was in that moment like, oh, I want to do something with Neville and with yoga, and then you pop up and you say this,
Yeah.
and I'm like, okay, this is not a coincidence. I
Yeah.
totally created this. So, and now we
Yes.
are.
And here
And
we
now
are.
we are,
Yes.
because I would love to hear your, like, how did you get to the idea? What are you doing with it? What are you planning to do with it? Like, whatever you want to share about yoga, Neville, why you think,
Beautiful.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. So I discovered Neville first.
yeah.
I was not, I had done like yoga a handful of times. I'd gone to a yoga class, I should say, a handful of times, because yoga really is a way of life. But I'd
Mm,
gone to a handful of classes, but it was not something that I was really focused on in my life at all until I broke my arm and discovered Neville.
mm,
And through the process of really tuning into what Neville Goddard was teaching, I started to realize that a big part of healing my body was going to be using my imagination to draw to me the opportunities to best serve and heal my body.
mm,
And um, I started, so I spent about a year rehabilitating my arm. And it was a lot of time listening to Neville. And as I was listening to Neville, I'd be doing exercises and stretches and, massaging it and working on it and all this type of stuff. And just like really imagining what it would feel like to have, full use of my arm again, just really imagining like the end. And out of that, it's really kind of interesting how the bridge of incidents came together. Basically what happened was I was really imagining my arm being healed. And out of that, some ideas started to flow. And I was like, okay, I think that I need to see someone who can assist me with this. And I just happened to discover that like in the building behind the building that I was living, there was a massage therapy school. And I didn't know this when I moved in. I didn't even realize it up until I was like in this state of like really manifesting health for my arm. And then I just, through bridge of incidents, I happened to notice the sign on the building and like this little plaque that said School of Massage. And I was like, what? There's a massage school right here. So anyway, so I ended up going to the massage school, getting massage, meeting someone who became an epic friend who was at massage school. And she was very much into yoga. And she started telling me, she was like, what your arm needs is yoga. And I was like, yeah, I don't really know about that, but like, okay, I'm open to it. Like I just, don't really have any background in yoga. She ends up going to Costa Rica. She literally moved out of the country, moved to Costa Rica. And while she was in Costa Rica, she found out about the yoga teacher training
mm.
about a week before it started. And she called me and she said, Josiah, there's a yoga teacher training happening and it starts in a week. And I really feel like you're meant to be here for yoga teacher training. And at that moment, when she said that to me, it had never occurred to me ever, the idea of taking yoga teacher training, like a class maybe, but
Yeah.
taking a 200-hour certification, like
Uh,
no, never,
we
is not
thought,
even anywhere on my radar. And when she said it to me, I felt it in my heart. I felt it in my body and in my heart. And I had learned enough at that point to know that like, that's greater me telling me like, hey, this is for you. So I said to her, I said, I don't know how much it costs. I don't know where the money's going to come from. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I'm coming. Like it feels right to me. I'm coming. And I posted a video on my YouTube channel at that point. It's up there. It's a ways back, but it's up there. It was like, hey guys, I got invited to yoga teacher training. I'm about to manifest a way to get there, both financially and everything else. I'm like traveling internationally. It was less than a week to prepare.
Wow.
And it worked. I set my intent upon it. I started falling asleep in Costa Rica. I imagined the jungle around me. I imagined, the sounds of the jungle, the monkeys, everything else. I could really put myself in that state. I started falling asleep. Within about 3 days, I had half the money.
Wow.
I was just able to find half the money. And then I still needed the other half. And the day before I had to fly, I ran randomly. I was going through some things while I was packing, and I found a gift card for $1,500 that I didn't know that I had. I literally manifested $1,500, which was, of course, the rest of the money that I needed to go to yoga teacher training. So
I love it.
This is insane. So, getting the tickets and international travel and having the passport, all of that stuff clicked into place. I didn't know about the money, but I kept just telling myself, I am already in Costa Rica. The money comes out of nowhere. I've got it. I'm able to pay for the yoga teacher training, and I go to yoga teacher training. And finding Neville, waking up to the creative power of imagination. I kind of went through this phase where at first in my growth of learning about how to manifest imagination, everything, at first I was okay, cool. Let me reach for all of these things, right? Let me reach for oh, I want a house, and I want a car, and I want money, or I want this object or that object, or this job or that job. And what I started to realize is that none of that stuff is really the point. All of that stuff is only evidence of the man that I believe that I am. And I didn't get that right at first. It was a growth stage for me. I had to go through this phase of thinking oh, this thing is really what I want. And then later waking up further and being no, it's actually not the thing that I want. Really what I want is to know that I am the man that I want to be, the man that I desire to be. And then this new and more profound depth of understanding that when I am that man, then all of these things that I could point to in the mirrors of my world are quite literally just that, reflections of my state. So it's perfectly normal and natural for me to have the house, the car, the money, the relationship, the jobs, the opportunities when I am the man that I desire to be. And that's my focus, as opposed to thinking that those things are my focus. So I got to the point about the time when I was getting ready to go to yoga teacher training, I got to the point where I started to realize that really all I really wanted was purpose. I was really calling in and manifesting my life purpose. I'm not here to make a bunch of money. Come on. I'm not here to drive a nice car or to live in a nice house. All those things are nice, but that, I did not come to earth to do that stuff. That just, it felt so elementary to me on some level. I was I'm here for a reason. I've had the life experiences that I've had for a reason, and I don't know what that is right now. And the desire of my heart is to really, whatever my gift is, my desire of my heart is really to be able to develop it and give that gift to the world. So that I was really in this place when the invitation came for yoga teacher training, where I was my desire is to be the man who is using his gifts, skills, talents, and abilities in the fullest expression, of the divine in me, and giving my gift to the world. And so, I get to yoga teacher training, and pretty much as soon as I'm in it, I realize that the invitation to yoga teacher training was a manifestation of multiple things that I'd been calling in. It was a manifestation of a way to really become present with my body and to begin to heal my body in a way that I was unaware of before it how miraculous these bodies really are. I didn't get that the way that I got that once I was in yoga teacher training. And then two, it was, I was pretty aware right from the beginning. I was like, I don't think I'm going to teach asana. Like at no point was I like, oh, I'm going to teach asana at a studio. Like that was never really my thing. But I knew once I really started to get into yoga, because like I said, I was really a complete newbie, and going to yoga teacher training as a complete newbie. I kind of had a hint that yoga is more than asana. Like I was like, oh yeah, I know that it's like this ancient tradition. I had no idea that yoga was quite literally like this ancient lifestyle practice of awakening.
Yeah.
I didn't comprehend that. I didn't realize that it was quite literally a way of being to support the awakening of God within us. And once I got to yoga teacher training and met my teacher, who really activated me on an existential level, she's like master activating. Once I got into that situation, I started to realize, I was like, okay, yoga, even if I'm never going to be an asana teacher at a yoga studio, yoga is a key aspect of the manifestation of me being the man that I desire to be, and really giving my gifts, skills, talents, and abilities to the world.
Yeah.
It really started to become clear on that.
Wow. Sorry. I just have to, that was a lot of energy. That was so wonderful to hear. Yeah, no, it's amazing. And I love it. And everyone that has done a teacher training or does more yoga, so not just, as you said, the asanas, but really knows about, okay, what's behind, what is yoga actually, because it's about the embodiment, about the awakening, about the being spirit, being body, being more, and quieting the mind and just receiving. And so and anyone so I lost my thread. Anyone who has done the teacher training or more yoga knows that. So it's yes, that's what it's about. And then you were also talking about, I really love that, because I guess I had the same thought around that time, like how can we use the literal physical tools in yoga for conscious creation? And you also talked about the breathing exercises. So we did 5 of them, and a couple of them I'm Brahmri and Ujjayi. I will write down some descriptions below for people that are like, what are you talking about?
Yes.
But Brahmri and Ujjayi, I know. But breath of fire, so Kapalabhati, the balancing, Analom Viloma, and Bastrika. I have a feeling that these are really powerful tools we can use in conscious creation. What is your idea about, like, how can we use yoga?
It's such a beautiful question. I'm present to a lot when you ask that. It's one of my friends, actually the woman who invited me to yoga teacher training down there, she always talked about how her practice was her prayer. And the sacredness of the mat. She's like, she points to her mat and she's like, this is my space. She's like, I die and I am reborn in this space. And that's like a very poetic way to look at it, but there's a part of me that really feels that deeply. It's like, it's a moving meditation. Yoga, it can be. And at this point, I haven't taken a whole lot of yoga classes at studios. I have my own practice. I do some yoga. I do have a membership at a studio. I do some yoga there, but I haven't gone to like a lot of different studios. I don't have a lot of wide variety of experience with it. So I can really only speak personally from like what I do in my practice. But for me, I find that, as I'm moving, as I'm breathing, I'm letting go of things. It's like, there's this mirror type relationship that we have between our spirit and our body. If this body is quite literally the physical manifestation of my spirit, it is like the physical form, it's my spirit is taking shape in material reality as this body, then there's really this very intimate relationship between my spirit and my body. And when I'm moving my body in very specific ways, when I'm, breathing deeply, inspiring, like there's a reason why they call it like being inspired, right? It's like, when I'm breathing deeply, when I'm moving my body, when I'm stretching, it's like on some of those, I feel like I'm stretching and I'm moving and I'm inspiring my being. And it's like this two-way relationship. It's like my spirit can inspire my body, my body can inspire my spirit, and I can consciously create that relationship through the practice of yoga. And sometimes I'll wake up in the morning and I'll just, I don't know if you ever have days like this. I'm sure most people probably do. I just wake up in the morning. It's like, I don't really feel me. I kind of feel like stuck or like a little bit like kind of low, or just something's off about my state. I can't tell you how many times I can start my day feeling like that. And when I go straight to my mat and I start breathing and I start moving and I tune into my heart space, like I can powerfully shift states just through this practice of movement and breath. And, as Neville teaches, the state is the most important thing. And so any tool that I have that can support sustaining that feeling of the wish fulfilled is a valid tool. But there's something in particular about yoga that I really do feel like it's one of the most powerful tools that I have in my toolbox in terms of shifting my state when I'm in an undesirable state, and then supporting and sustaining the desirable state when I'm in the desirable state.
Yeah. Yeah. So yoga, the practice as a total is actually what you're saying.
Yeah.
Kind of yeah. Yeah, I agree. And what I found out and what happened actually also, I didn't even know it was possible for me. So we took before and after pictures because I was curious to see how my body would change during this month.
Awesome. Yes.
And then something very unexpected, which my soul obviously already knew, because why are you inspired to do it?
Yes.
Is my back changed big time. So I have scoliosis, which means there's my spine is not completely straight. So one of my shoulder blades was sticking out more than the other. And when you see, like, I have a before and after picture, and you see the first photo is literally like restless and not balanced. And the second picture, you can see balance, and my shoulder blades they look healthy, and they went back, and I'm like, in a month, how is this even possible?
Yeah. Wow.
So when my body gets so balanced, I have more energy and space also
Yes.
to consciously create. And I also believe that literally from a balanced body, we create balanced things.
Yes. Yes.
So
Absolutely.
yeah. And now what, Josiah? So have you done retreats already? Are you planning retreats?
Yeah.
What is
I just did my first retreat in Barbados.
No way. In
Yes.
Barbados.
In
No way.
Barbados. Yeah.
How was that?
Oh, it's heaven.
So cool.
Yeah, it was something else. So kind of completing the story there, bringing it full circle. So it was in Costa Rica at yoga teacher training, having really been calling in like life purpose, like what are my gifts, skills, talents, abilities? How do I use them in a way that's beautiful? Like giving the gift to myself, giving the gift of myself to myself pushed out.
Yeah.
It was in that space that I became really clear that what I really want to do, my joyful self-expression, is hosting retreats. And so that's really where that seed became planted. And then it came to fullness. I just got back a week ago. It was the end of October into the beginning of November, like right over the cusp there of the change of the month. We were in Barbados for a week.
No way.
And I led a retreat. There was 16 of us all together at a villa, a private villa on the ocean, on the west side of Barbados. And it was a dream come true on so
Heaven.
many
It
levels.
sounds
It was
like heaven. Oh
beautiful.
my goodness. Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. So that came together pretty quickly then.
Really quickly. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Want to share more? I want to hear more.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Yeah. Okay. So basically how it went was I, like I said, I got yoga teacher training and I was pretty clear. I was like, I'm not ever really going to be the asana teacher at a studio, but I know that this is really important. What I started to realize is that I was really, really enjoying the space of being in the jungle with, I think my class was about 12 people altogether, my yoga teacher training class. So it's in this very isolated, part is the Nicoya Peninsula of Costa Rica, which is like this very isolated, remote in the jungle part of Costa Rica. And I was there for about 5 weeks, 200 hours yoga teacher training. And I really loved what it felt like to be in that space with these people, doing something where all of us are kind of focused on the same thing, in this case, yoga teacher training. And I started to tune into all that. And I was like, I really just want to do this all the time. Like and I was like, I was aware, I was like, well, I can't literally be a yoga teacher training all the time, but like, this is at least an indication to me. It's a kind of a message back from my mirrors, like, hey, this is a space in which I really feel connected, really feel like I'm thriving. So it's like, okay, how can I create more like a space like this where I can do this every day? And what came to me was retreats. And I thought, okay, it's kind of like a dialogue I was having with my own consciousness in a space of meditation. It's like, okay, how can I have more of these experiences in my life? I was like, oh, you could host retreats. And I was like, host retreats? Well, okay, but what would that look like? And what came to me is like, I would really want to host retreats with beautiful people, meaning, and for me, everyone is beautiful, but like in particular in a retreat space, you really see the most beautiful parts of people. It's just kind of this very unique thing. So basically what I say when I say beautiful people is like people who are willing to come and show that beautiful part of themselves. That's really what I mean by that. So beautiful people in beautiful places. And I want to bring beautiful people to beautiful places and have experiences with them. And it's like, okay, well, where would I find these beautiful people? And the answer that came to me again in this meditative conversation I was having with my higher self is it was like, well, teach them something worth learning. And I thought, okay, well, what is that? What is it that I can teach that's worth learning? And the answer was imagination.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so that's what planted the seed. So I got back from Costa Rica. I actually went to Costa Rica twice within a very short amount of time. I came back, went again for longer, came back. And then within short order, I started teaching online. And the whole idea of teaching online was I'm going to build a community. And then out of that community of students, I'm going to offer retreats. And then host retreats for students who want to come and have in-person experiences on these topics. So that gave birth to the Neville Goddard School of Imagination. And out of the Neville Goddard School of Imagination, that I founded the Neville Goddard School of Imagination in April of this year. And I graduated my first class of students on July 31st of this year. And then out of that class of students, I said, hey, let's go to Barbados. Who wants to come with me? And I offered, them the opportunity to come have this experience in person. And out of that, 16 of us went to Barbados at the end of October. And that was the first one. And
Cool.
I am only more inspired than ever to do more. So it's like, it's just kind of giving birth to clarity first, and then manifesting, the ideas for the course, manifesting the students to show up to take the course, manifesting the scenarios for, how to host a retreat, like all the logistics, the team, the people, the place, even the villa felt like a manifestation itself. To find like this really beautiful place, and, and then all those pieces come together, and then manifesting, the opportunity for the retreat, and then manifesting people to come to the retreat, and then manifesting the retreat itself. And then now I'm on the other side of that. And now it's like,
Wow.
thank you, universe, more please. Like
Yeah.
that's where I'm at in this moment.
And what a level of trust you must have also. Trust in the process, trust in yourself that you're able to pull this off. Wow, that's amazing, Josiah. And what you said about your school, I had an idea, or I had I don't know, it just came to me. You know how things come to you and you don't know, like, what was it exactly what I was thinking?
Yep.
But so I'm in this Facebook group, a Neville Facebook group. There are a
Yep.
couple of them.
Yep.
And there's this girl, and she is crazy good in interpreting Neville and how she writes. And like, she's written so many posts. You can literally print a book with really good interpretations of Neville.
Beautiful.
And I was thinking, we have to make some kind of a school, like where people can learn about Neville. But this is so amazing that you founded a school and you have students that graduated from, like, how that is such a beautiful manifestation. And yeah, well, I know you will get even more students, and I wish you many more students.
Thank you.
Yeah, wow, amazing. So then you will do another retreat soon?
Yeah, we're going to be doing another one in spring of 2020.
Yeah.
And I'm planning on, I wanted to do the first one with the graduates of the first course, but there is going to be a retreat that I'm opening up to really anyone that's a Neville student at all and wants to come. Just because, the path of awakening can be a somewhat lonely path. Like it's just by nature, we're all called and awakened individually.
Yeah.
But community is so important. And with this amazing tool of the internet, I mean, you and I are on other sides of the planet right now, and we're talking in this moment. What a blessing that is. Neville didn't have the internet, and we do. So we have the opportunity to connect in a way that unlike anything else that's ever existed prior. So, it's just this opportunity to really connect with others who are on the path and to encourage and inspire each other to share experiences. It really, at some point, it really starts to feel like family. These people who are on this path, and like, how beautiful, beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing that we can do that together and reach out to each other and also meet in person. Yeah. Yeah. So, please give me all the details that I can share in the description underneath the video. And I think I asked most questions.
Yeah.
I love your energy and I love your enthusiasm, and I love how you also know how to listen, because that's the whole thing. Know when. I had the same, my calling for yoga teacher training. I was like, no, I don't want this. Like, I knew I had to do it, but I said, no, I don't want this.
Yeah.
Oh crap, I have to, because you just know that voice. Like, this is not a voice that takes no for an answer.
Yeah.
Because you have to. Really
Yeah.
know yourself. And know the voice that's serious.
Yes.
What's your favorite Neville lecture? Do you have a favorite?
It changes over time.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But I will say one of my all-time favorites is Live in the End. I actually, in Live in the End, he tells the story of Barbados. And I definitely had a moment in Barbados where I put it on my phone and I walked around the villa and just like being very present with everything while listening to his words, telling the story of Barbados. I was like, I'm here too, Neville. I did it too. Like, we did this together. We both in our own time and space, we both manifested Barbados. And it does change over time, but Live in the End, I would say, is one of my all-time favorites. And then of course there's the the Pruning Shears of Revision, which is incredibly powerful. And then it's not so much a lecture, but it was a record. I almost said CD, a record that he put out that was called Self-Taught Creates Reality.
Yeah.
And that's a really powerful one too. So I'd say those are my top three.
Wow. Thank you. And actually, yeah, I think we can talk for hours.
I think we can. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's do another one at some point.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely, definitely. And do you have a cool story to end with? Maybe a revision story that you can share with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you have
Yes.
something, and that's it, folks? Then we're
Yeah.
ending. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So one of my favorite things to do recently, almost at this point, it's almost playful
Mm.
because I've had so much success with it. It's like, oh, here's, when the situation you have, oh, here's another opportunity. Losing things
Ah,
and
yeah,
then revising that I have them and feeling them in my hand and feeling that relief of like, oh, I'm so glad you're not lost.
yeah,
And then letting it go. And
yeah.
like, it always comes. It always comes. Okay. So, I traveled a lot this year. I went to Barcelona and I was in Barcelona and I was at a market and I happened to look away for just a moment. And in a split second, my bag it walked away. We'll put it that way. My bag walked away. And it had some stuff in it, but like nothing that I was like super heartbroken. I was like, okay, whatever. And I'm at the point where like, I whatever, like it is what it is. And I understand Neville, so I understand that whoever did this had to do what they did. It's like, whatever, I'm not going to judge, whatever. But there was one thing that was in the bag that I was really, really sad that I didn't have. It was something that's truly irreplaceable. Most everything in the bag was replaceable. There's one thing that was not replaceable. And I like, it was so meaningful to me that I kind of teared up a little bit when I realized that it was in the bag, and I like kind of had to say goodbye to it. And then I got home and I was like, wait a second, I don't have to say goodbye to it. I can use revision.
Yeah.
I know Neville. Like, what am I doing? So I was like, no, never mind. I'm willing to let the bag go. Like, that's fine. I'm not attached to that. But this item, you know what? I have it. I have it. And I felt it in my hand and I looked at it and I was like, there you are. And I felt the joy of knowing that it was safe. And a big part for me is actually feeling it in my hand, like literally touching it, like feeling the edges, like very tactile. And I felt it and I knew exactly what it felt like. It's one of my, precious item to me. I knew exactly what it felt like. And I was like, I'm so glad that you're safe. I'm so glad that you are not in that bag. I'm so glad that I have you back.
Yeah.
And I let it go. And it took about a week. But about a week later, I was going through something else, paging through something else. And there it is.
No way.
And it's so crazy, Monique, because before I packed that bag, because traveling overseas is a typical thing for me, I take pictures of what I put in the bags. It was in the photograph of the stuff that went in the bag.
I love this.
And yet, I have it. So revision works. Like, I don't know what else to say.
This is the most amazing story to end.
So joyful.
Yeah. I'm so happy on so many multiple levels because I so need to do this with a couple of things.
Totally. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yes, of course.
Don't hang up yet. I'm going to end the recording.
Very good. Yes.
I loved this. Yes, you are amazing. Thank you, Josiah.
Awesome. Thank you, Monique. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and everyone who is watching, listening, have fun. More Neville and getting into yoga.
More Neville and yoga. Yes.